Hi everyone. Let me explain the situation in which I will try to solve one problem. Imagine that you work on a project together with several other developers, and of course you all share the same project, and you probably use some type of source control for the code. One problem in this setup is a web.config file, and the fact that sometimes each person will have his or her own configuration, which is developer specific or machine specific, and whenever such configuration exists, it represents a little problem when you need to commit a web.config. I will show you one Nugget or NuGet that I wrote, which can help you have clean and elegant setup in your Visual Studio solution. Note that everything that I say for web.config in this video can be also applied to app.config. Just use another NuGet. What this Nugget will be doing is taking developer-specific or machine-specific parts from this file and injecting them into this one here, which will result with your web.config file. Setup is not ready yet. You need to build your project after installing this Nugget. You then need to commit changes. Then you should edit your developer-specific or machine-specific settings. Let's say I'm using a different database connection string. In this example, this is the name of the server. And then you should rebuild once again. Now your web.config is updated. Now you don't need web.config and web.config local parts on your source control, and you should remove them. And you need to commit changes. And in Visual Studio, if you don't see icons like this, just restart Visual Studio and he will probably update icons to the latest state. If you're using different type of source control, just find a way to ignore those two files over there. But they need to exist in solution because, of course, this web.config is still being copied to bin folder. And now your general configuration is web.config base, and your personal or machine specific settings are in local parts, and web.config is being built from base where local parts are injected. And your application will use that result. Over time you will need to edit your web.config, for example, to add additional settings, and you should do that in web.config.base because you want those new settings to commit to source control and share with others. And let me show you what will happen on another machine. On that machine, for example, I'm downloading fresh copy from source control. At first, Visual Studio will complain about missing files. Web.config and web.config local parts, remember, we removed those from source control. But you can build your solution, run it. ConfigOverwriter will take care of missing files. And on that machine, your solution will have general settings. And if you want specific, add it to your local parts. And your build will use them. Visual Studio still reports web.config that is waiting to be added to source control. This is because Visual Studio automatically included that file, and you need to ignore it once again. And commit that decision. Now this is the look that we want. You should know there are 3 ways to tell ConfigOverwriter to how to inject tags from local parts to base. First and the simplest one is by writing this. It will tell him to remove everything from the parent tag and replace with ones with tags that are specified inside. Second way is by specifying child tag name. In this case, it will search this parent tag for the globalization child tag, and we'll replace just that one. And the third way is to tell him to search for attribute name. In this case it is key, and whenever he finds child with the same attribute value for that attribute, he will replace it, or of course if he does not find any, he will just insert. Basically those are three most common use cases, and if you need for something else you will need to experiment a little bit. And if you are curious about how ConfigOverwriter works in behind, well, it compares timestamps of all three files and figures out which should be read and which one should be rebuilt. And for that, file timestamps are not enough. He is also adding time of rebuilding in web.config files, so you should never change this line. And if you want to go into details even more, you can download source from GitHub, and feel free to contribute.